It must have been around 2018 when I was in the market for a new phone. I was scouring Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace for an iPhone 7, back when everyone still had home buttons. After a bit of searching, I found a listing that seemed too good to pass up. An iPhone, factory unlocked and brand new, for only $300. At that time, it was a steal. The seller's name was Miles. He seemed normal enough over text, casual and responsive. He sent me all the information I needed, including a video of the phone still sealed in the box. The whole thing seemed legit, so I agreed to buy it. At first, he said he was located pretty close to me, but later, he mentioned he was about an hour north now, and asked if I could meet him there instead. I wasn't thrilled about driving that far, but since the deal was so good, I figured it was worth the trip. I started reaching out to my friends to see if anyone was up for a little road trip. After some persuasion, my friend Marissa agreed to tag along, under one condition. I had to buy her dinner for coming. Deal. We made plans to head out that evening around 8:30. Miles sent me an address for a police precinct, saying he only did transactions in precinct parking lots to avoid scams. That actually made me feel a lot better, so I didn't question it. I picked up Marissa, and we set off on what we thought was going to be a quick and easy trip. The car ride was fun. We laughed, chatted about random things, and looked forward to grabbing dinner afterwards. As we got closer to the destination, though, things started feeling a bit off. We found ourselves driving through more and more secluded areas. Lots of woods, very few buildings, and almost no traffic. When we finally reached the police precinct, the parking lot was empty, save for a few parked police cars. No sign of Miles or anyone else. We circled the lot a couple of times, just to be sure we weren't missing him. I decided to call him. He picked up and said he was having car trouble and had pulled over on the side of the road a little further ahead. He sent me his location, which was in the middle of nowhere, just a dark road with woods on either side. Miles asked if I could come give him a jump start since he had the cables. I wasn't keen on it, but after driving all that way, I figured I might as well help him out. Marissa wasn't having it. She said this was way too sketchy, and we should just head back. I tried reasoning with her, suggesting we at least drive past his location to see what was up. So, despite both of us feeling uneasy, we drove toward the spot. When we reached the location, we saw headlights reflecting off the road ahead. As we got closer, I slowed down and realized it was a black car, just like Miles had mentioned. But there was no one standing by it, and we couldn't see anyone inside either. It was pitch dark, with no other cars or lights around, just the eerie stillness of the woods. Marissa urged me to keep driving, and I didn't need much convincing. Something about the whole setup was wrong. Way too convenient. As we passed the car, Miles started blowing up my phone, calling repeatedly. I ignored every call. Then he texted me. "I saw you just passed me. Why didn't you stop? Turn around." I ignored that too. Trying to shake off the creepiness of it all, we found a small diner not far away and decided to grab a bite to eat. We sat down and ordered coffee, trying to laugh off the situation. The diner was nearly empty, which was weird for a Friday night, but we didn't think much of it. Just as our coffees arrived, a man in a dirty navy blue hoodie walked into the diner and sat at the counter. He glanced over at us a few times before ordering a coffee, and I immediately felt a knot in my stomach. I whispered to Marissa, "Don't look now, but I think that guy is Miles." We both went quiet, trying to keep calm. His voice carried across the diner when he said, "Thanks, darling," to the waitress. That's when I knew for sure. It was him. I told Marissa we needed to leave now. I waved down the waitress and quietly asked for the check, explaining that we needed to go. She must have sensed something was off because she quickly got us the bill without any questions. As we hurried out of the diner, Marissa whispered, "He's getting up." I glanced back and saw the man walking toward the door. I didn't wait. I sped out of the parking lot and got us back on the road as fast as I could. Sure enough, there was a black car parked outside the diner that looked just like the one we had passed earlier. As I sped down the highway, I noticed my low tire pressure light had come on. My heart sank. I pulled over to check the tire, and sure enough, it had been slashed. I had to replace it with the spare, all while feeling like Miles could show up any second. It took about 15 minutes, but we got it done and got back on the road. Looking back, it's terrifying how close we came to walking into what was clearly a setup. Marissa and I laugh about it now. After all, it's one of those crazy stories you can't help but share. But that night, it was no joke. We could have been walking right into a trap, and I'll always be thankful we trusted our gut and got out of there. When I first moved out of my parents' house and into my own apartment, I had a lot of stuff I needed to get rid of. Things I didn't have space for, and things my dad was eager to clear out. I wasn't a fan of Craigslist because it always felt a bit sketchy to me, so I decided to try my luck with Facebook Marketplace. I listed a bunch of items, including my childhood toys, book collections, and a weight set that I priced at $340. It came with a barbell, a plate tree, and several weight plates. I thought it was a decent deal, but surprisingly, I wasn't getting much interest. Days went by with the occasional message from people asking if the weight set was still available, but none followed through, until I received a message from a guy named Chris. His profile picture was grainy, but I could make out a guy wearing a fishing hat and holding up a fish. His account was private, so I couldn't see much about him except that we had 3 mutual friends, all of whom were girls I knew from my hometown. His last name matched that of a Chris I vaguely remembered from high school, so I assumed it was him. Chris asked if the weight set was still available, and after confirming, he replied, "Great, when can I come pick it up?" I was surprised he didn't even try to negotiate the price. I told him he could come by any evening after 7 p.m., and he quickly responded, saying he could swing by around 11 that night after work. It seemed a bit late, but I figured it was convenient for him, so I agreed. In an attempt to be friendly, I messaged, "Hey, you used to date Hannah, right? I recognized your last name." He started typing, but then stopped, leaving me with no response. I found it strange, but I didn't push it. A while later, I sent another message. "I thought I recognized your name, LOL." But again, nothing for half an hour. Then, he finally replied with a short, "Yeah, LOL," and asked for my address, saying he'd text me when he was on his way. I sent him the address, but once again, he read it and didn't reply for hours. By the time I got home from the gym around 7:30, I still hadn't heard from him. I was waiting for a message or a call, but nothing came. Finally, around 10:30, Chris asked for my phone number to confirm when he was close. I gave him my number, and soon enough I got a text from a local number. Something immediately felt off. The text came through as green bubbles, meaning he didn't have an iPhone, which was odd because most people I knew did. Still, I shrugged it off. He texted, "I'll be there in a couple of hours," and I responded, "Sounds good, just let me know when you're close." At 11:30, I got a message saying, "I'm here, come outside." I peeked out my front window and saw a dark-colored car idling on the street. I tried calling him to ask if he needed help carrying the weights, but he immediately declined my call and texted, "Yo, come out." Something wasn't sitting right with me. I texted back, "I can see you. Just come inside. I need help with the weights. There's a lot of them." His response was, "Nah, gotta see if you're straight first." I had no idea what that meant, but my gut was telling me something wasn't right. I tried calling again, but he declined once more. Feeling increasingly uneasy, I messaged one of our mutual friends, Maya, to check if she knew anything about Chris. Maya responded quickly, and her message made my stomach drop. "That's not him. Someone's pretending to be Chris. He doesn't even have Facebook anymore." Panic hit me as I glanced back out the window. The car was still there, but now I noticed someone standing by one of the bushes near my apartment. I was paralyzed for a moment, watching as the figure shifted, trying to stay hidden. Suddenly, the car horn honked, and the man by the bushes sprinted to the car before it sped off. I stood there, shaken and terrified. Whoever was behind this fake profile now had my address. The next day, the Chris profile was deleted, and when I reached out to the real Chris, he confirmed he had no idea what was going on and hadn't been using social media for months. But it didn't end there. A few days later, I received a chilling text from an unknown number. "Watch your back. We know where you live. Keep talking to my girl and see what happens. We'll fuck you up. Sleep with one eye open." I immediately went to the police, but they didn't seem too concerned. It was treated as a low-priority case, and I never heard back from them. To this day, I have no idea who was behind this, or what they had planned if I had opened the door that night. Ever since that incident, I've been living with a lingering sense of unease. I stopped using Facebook Marketplace altogether and became extra cautious about sharing personal details online. I haven't received any more threatening messages, but the experience left me wary of trusting anyone I meet online. You can never be too careful. Back in 2018, I decided to sell an old pinball machine from my childhood. It wasn't a top-tier arcade model, but it was still worth a few $100s. It had been collecting dust in my parents' attic for years, and I figured I could sell it before one of my sisters got the same idea and insisted we split the money. My parents were away on vacation, so I thought it was the perfect time to list it without anyone knowing. I put the pinball machine up on Facebook Marketplace for $200. Not long after, I got a message from someone named Jessica. Her profile had no picture, which was already a bit sketchy, but she offered $175. I agreed to the price, and we arranged a time for her to come pick it up. However, as the time approached, Jessica messaged me saying she'd be late, pushing the time back over and over again. By 11 p.m., I was starting to get frustrated. I had work early the next morning and didn't want to wait around all night. I messaged her again, asking if she could make it by 11:30. She replied, saying she was already on her way. Despite my better judgment, I decided to wait for her. At 11:45, she finally messaged that she had arrived. I went to the front door and immediately noticed something that made me uncomfortable. 4 people had gotten out of the car, not just Jessica. It was 3 guys and a girl, and they were all walking toward my house. Alarm bells were going off in my head, and I quickly messaged her, asking, "Are you here with people?" She didn't respond. As they reached the door, I kept the storm door locked. These guys looked rough, and I didn't like the vibe at all. I asked through the door, "Are you Jessica?" The girl nodded, but I could tell something was off. I told her, "I can't let all of you in. My parents are sleeping." That was a lie, of course, but it seemed like the safest excuse I could come up with. She immediately got aggressive, yanking on the door handle and yelling, "What are you talking about?" When she realized the door was locked, she started banging on the glass, demanding to be let in. I slammed the main door shut and locked it, hearing the group outside shouting obscenities at me. They banged on the door and rang the doorbell over and over, making threats and mocking me. I was starting to get genuinely scared. These were not the kind of people I wanted in my house, especially when I was alone. I peered through a window and saw one of the guys urinating in my driveway. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they got back in their car and left, yelling something at me as they drove off. I tried to calm myself down and eventually went upstairs to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I was still rattled by what had just happened. Then, just when I thought it was over, I heard the unmistakable sound of glass shattering downstairs. My heart dropped. Someone had broken into the house. I froze for a second, then tiptoed to my bedroom door to make sure it was locked. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, whispering to the operator that someone had broken into the house. I could hear footsteps moving quickly through the house, getting closer to the stairs. I felt sick with fear. I hid under my bed, clutching my phone. I could hear them moving around downstairs, rifling through things. Thankfully, they didn't stay long. Within 5 minutes, they were gone, long before the police arrived. They had smashed a window in the back of the house and stolen items from nearly every room, but ironically, they hadn't taken the pinball machine. When the police showed up, I gave them a full report and told them everything I knew about Jessica and the group she had brought with her. I even embellished the story a bit, telling them I had been verbally threatened, hoping it would make them take the case more seriously. To my surprise, the detectives did take it seriously. They tracked down the Jessica account and traced it back to a woman living a few towns over. Armed with a search warrant, they searched her home and found several items stolen from my parents' house. She quickly folded under pressure and ratted out the 3 men who were with her. All 4 of them were charged with burglary. Most of the stolen items were recovered, and thankfully, nothing too sentimental was lost. My family was, of course, furious when they found out what had happened, but eventually, they calmed down and understood that I had made a mistake in judgment. Looking back, I know I should have trusted my instincts and canceled the meetup the moment I saw something was off. It's a lesson I'll never forget. Sometimes your gut feeling is the best protection you've got. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed our stories and would like to hear more, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you captivating tales and new content every week. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We appreciate every one of you for being a part of our storytelling journey.